There's a method of generating electricity that requires no fuel, no solar panels, and no moving parts. 2 pieces of metal pushed into wet dirt. That is all it takes. In 1841, a Scottish inventor powered a telegraph system across miles of open land using nothing but copper and zinc buried in the earth. No wires connected to a power plant, no coal, no steam engine, just 2 metals and the ground beneath his feet. The device produced a steady current for months without a single maintenance visit. Then the telegraph companies realized something terrifying. If anyone could generate electricity from soil, no one would ever need to buy it again. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A method that turns dirt into a power source cannot be metered. And what cannot be metered cannot be monetized. This is the story of the Earth battery, the oldest electrical generator in human history, and the secret to the energy industry buried beneath your feet. Welcome to Forbidden Hacks. If you're not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we dig up what the industry buried. Let me take you back to where this all started. The year is 1841, and a Scottish clockmaker named Alexander Bain is working in a small workshop in Edinburgh. Bain is not wealthy, he's not connected to the scientific elite, but he has an obsession with electricity that borders on madness. One afternoon, Bain drives 2 different metal rods into the damp soil behind his workshop, 1 copper and 1 zinc. He connects a wire between them and attaches a small meter. The needle moves, not a flicker, a steady, sustained current flowing from the earth itself. Bain does not fully understand why it works, but he understands exactly what it means. He files a patent that same year, patent number 9363, the Earth battery. He uses it to power his electric clock designs, and then he scales it up. By 1843, Bain demonstrates that Earth batteries can power telegraph lines across open land without any conventional power source. The telegraph is the internet of the 19th century, connecting cities, nations, and entire continents. Bain has just proven it can run on dirt. But Bain is not alone in this discovery. 50 years later, in 1892, a farmer in Murray, Kentucky, named Nathan Stubblefield takes the Earth battery even further. Stubblefield buries metal coils in the ground around his farm and connects them to a device he built himself. On a cold January morning, he invites witnesses to his property, picks up a receiver, and they hear his voice transmitted wirelessly across the farm. No wires between transmitter and receiver, no conventional power source, just Earth batteries driving the entire system. The local newspaper calls it a miracle. Stubblefield demonstrates again in Washington, D.C. in 1902 on the Potomac River, transmitting voice across open water. Despite multiple successful public demonstrations, no major company invests in his technology. He dies alone in 1928, penniless in a shack on his own farm. His devices scattered. His patents expired without commercialization. Now go back even further. About 2,250 years before Bain's workshop. Archaeologists working near Baghdad in 1938 discover a clay jar roughly 5 inches tall. Inside is a copper cylinder with an iron rod suspended in the center. The artifact dates to approximately 250 BC. When researchers at General Electric fill a replica with grape juice as an electrolyte, it produces between 1.5 and 2 volts of electricity. The Baghdad battery, 2,000 years before Volta, 2,000 years before Edison, someone in ancient Mesopotamia figured out that 2 different metals separated by an acidic liquid produce electric current. This is not a theory. This is a measured, replicated, laboratory-confirmed result. The principle has never changed in over 2 millennia. Civilizations rise and fall, empires crumble and rebuild. But the chemistry of 2 dissimilar metals in wet earth generating voltage has remained constant since before the Romans laid their first road. And here is what should make you pause. In 1848, the United States government itself used Earth batteries to power sections of the early telegraph network. The technology was documented in official reports filed with the Smithsonian Institution. This is not fringe science. This was federal infrastructure. And then quietly, without public debate or announcement, the Earth battery disappeared from the conversation. Not because a better alternative was found, because a more profitable one was. This video is just the surface. I have collected everything the energy industry does not want you to know. All of it inside the complete Forbidden Hacks vault. Earth battery blueprints with exact measurements and metal combinations for maximum output. Fire techniques that military units used and that are now classified as dangerous. Emergency shelters that cost nothing and outperform $200 tents. Off-grid power methods that work without solar panels or generators. Over 10 guides in one place. No filler. Straight to the point. The link is in the description. But stay here. The video is just getting started. Now let me show you exactly why this works, because the science is as elegant as it is simple. The principle behind the Earth battery is called galvanic reaction. It is one of the most thoroughly documented phenomena in all of electrochemistry. When 2 dissimilar metals are placed in an electrolyte, which is any liquid that conducts ions, electrons flow spontaneously from the more reactive metal to the less reactive one. This is not a hypothesis. It is a law of physics described by the electrochemical series that every chemistry student learns in their first year. Soil is a natural electrolyte. It contains water, mineral salts, organic acids, and billions of microorganisms that enhance ionic conductivity. Every handful of forest floor is a chemical soup perfectly suited to drive a galvanic reaction. The voltage depends on the metals you choose. Zinc and copper produce roughly 1.1 volts per cell. Magnesium and copper push closer to 2 volts. Aluminum and copper sit at about 1.5 volts. A single cell is not much on its own. But here is where it gets interesting. Connect 10 zinc and copper cells in series and you get 11 volts. Connect 20 and you hit 22 volts. That is enough to charge a smartphone. Enough to run LED camp lights through an entire night. Enough to power a small emergency radio for days. A study published by researchers at the University of Wisconsin in 2017 measured sustained current from soil-based galvanic cells over 90 days. The cells showed less than 12% degradation over 3 months of continuous use. Compare that to a conventional alkaline battery that loses up to 20% of its charge just sitting on a shelf, unused. The United States Department of Agriculture published a soil conductivity survey showing that most forest soils in North America have electrical conductivity between 200 and 800 microsiemens per centimeter, well within the range needed for effective galvanic output. In other words, the dirt under any average campsite is already a functioning electrolyte waiting for 2 pieces of metal. A team at MIT demonstrated in 2015 that microbial fuel cells, which operate on a nearly identical principle, could power remote sensors in agricultural fields for over a year with zero maintenance. The numbers are not theoretical. They are field-tested, peer-reviewed, and repeatedly confirmed. And yet, if you search for Earth Battery on any major retailer today, you will find exactly 0 products for sale. If you have made it this far, you already know more about off-grid power than 99% of people alive. Subscribe and share with someone who needs to remember what they made us forget. Everything the industry buried is in the complete vault. Link in the description. Now stay with me because the next part is the heaviest. Why is the Earth Battery not in every camping store, every survival kit, every emergency preparedness guide on the planet? Why does a technology documented by the United States government in 1848 not appear in a single modern outdoor catalog? Follow the money. The global battery industry generates over $150 billion in annual revenue. That is not a typo. $150 billion every single year, selling you devices that degrade, leak, expire, and need constant replacement. The average American household spends over $150 per year on disposable batteries alone. Multiply that by 130 million households, and you begin to see the architecture of dependence they have built. Now imagine a technology where raw materials cost less than $2, where the electrolyte is the ground you're standing on, where there is no expiration date because the reaction renews itself as long as the soil stays moist. You cannot patent dirt. You cannot patent the electrochemical series. It is a law of nature. You cannot create a subscription model for copper and zinc, metals that any hardware store sells by the pound. And you absolutely cannot build a $150 billion industry around something a 12-year-old can assemble in a backyard with a handful of pennies and some galvanized nails. The entire economic model of the portable power industry depends on you believing that electricity requires complex, proprietary, expensive technology. The Earth Battery represents everything that model cannot survive. It is free. It is simple. It is effectively infinite. And it is completely outside corporate control. So the Earth Battery had to be removed from public consciousness. Not banned, that would draw attention. Not debunked because the science is irrefutable. Just quietly removed from textbooks, absent from hardware store shelves, missing from every mainstream survival guide published in the last 50 years. The same pattern repeats with every self-sufficient technology that threatens a revenue stream. They do not fight it. They simply make you forget it ever existed. In 2012, a Harvard researcher published a paper on microbial fuel cells that function as enhanced Earth batteries. The study showed these cells could run small electronic devices using nothing but soil microbes. The paper was cited over 300 times in academic journals. Not a single commercial product came out of it. 300 citations and 0 consumer applications. The patents are expired or unenforceable. And still nobody sells you an Earth Battery because the profit margin on self-sufficiency is 0. Here is what you actually came for, how to build one. This is the part they do not teach, so pay attention. Start with copper and zinc. These give you the best balance of voltage, availability, and cost. Go to any hardware store and buy 14-gauge solid copper wire and galvanized steel nails. The galvanization is a zinc coating, which is your second electrode. Cut the copper wire into strips about 6 inches long. Take your galvanized nails. Standard 3-inch nails work perfectly. Find a patch of ground with moist, mineral-rich soil. Forest floors, garden beds, and areas near streams are ideal. Avoid sandy or extremely dry soil. Push 1 copper strip and 1 galvanized nail into the soil about 4 inches apart. Bury them at least 3 inches deep. That is 1 cell, and it will produce between 0.8 and 1.1 volts depending on your soil conditions. Now, here's the key. You connect them in series. Run a wire from the copper strip of cell 1 to the zinc nail of cell 2. Then from the copper of cell 2 to the zinc of cell 3. Each cell adds its voltage to the total. 10 cells give you roughly 8 to 11 volts. 15 cells can push you past 12 volts, which is the standard for USB charging. Add a simple voltage regulator for under $2, and you have a functioning phone charger powered entirely by dirt. The setup takes about 20 minutes, and total material cost is under $5. Compare that to a solar panel at $80 to $150 that does not work at night or under tree cover. Compare it to disposable batteries at $15 to $20 per trip that you throw away after a single use. Compare it to a portable power station at $200 to $500 that weighs 10 pounds and must be recharged from a wall outlet. The Earth battery weighs almost nothing, works day and night under any canopy, and the fuel source is the entire surface of the planet. A camper in northern Maine tested a 20-cell Earth battery during a week-long backcountry trip and reported charging his phone 3 times and running an LED lantern every night. Total material cost, $437. I need to be honest about the limitations. Earth batteries produce low current. You're not going to run a refrigerator with this method. In dry conditions, the output drops, though pouring water over the electrode sites recovers it quickly. The zinc electrodes corrode over time and need replacing every few weeks. But for off-grid lighting, emergency communication, and phone charging, the Earth battery is not a novelty. It is a proven, century-old technology that generates real, measurable electricity from the ground. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting. Waiting in Alexander Bain's 1841 patent. Waiting in Nathan Stubblefield's Kentucky farmhouse. Waiting in a clay jar buried under the sands of ancient Mesopotamia for 2,000 years. No industry can erase a law of physics. They can only make you forget it exists, but forgetting is not permanent. If this video opened a vault for you, subscribe and share it now. Every share preserves what the energy industry tried to erase. Every subscription keeps this channel digging where they do not want us to look. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is heavier than anything you heard today.